Okay.
Welcome, Genocidal Lizard Men, Poor Man's Jago, and David Bowie's Personal Robot to episode 371 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 16th of September 2020, and featuring The Visitation, written by Eric Sayward, and starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, Sarah Sutton as Nissa, and Janet Fielding as Tegan Jovanko. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and I've been enjoying making my own guacamole all week. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch,
Addicted to Conan,
Mad Matt Winchell,
Poor man's Jago yourself. This man's rich with culture.
and Thomas Fireheart,
Who's quiet.
who's still muted.
Of course, I'd bloody forget that I was muted.
Oops.
So how's everybody's week been?
Not too bad.
Been alright. I actually just found out in the last couple of days or so, apparently, there's a shooting at our at a place here in town.
Oh,
Ugh.
Yeah, our little nowhere town. All of a sudden, the place for the needy and or elderly person just up and shot 3 people, and they got themselves shot by the police because they wouldn't stand down.
So,
You mean Andy and Barney had to put somebody down?
They aren't incapable. Not in these parts. Gotta remember, this is still Wisconsin.
I know.
We know which end the business end of a gun is.
Yeah, I know. But, well, you know, Texas is even worse, but...
At least we're not the shakiest gun of the West.
Hey, the Waco kid was awesome.
I say this now, and as I suddenly just hear sirens going off.
Ugh.
That's interesting. Anyway.
So one of my favorite games put out a major expansion on Tuesday. So imagine my surprise when we go to play it on Tuesday and there's a 64 gigabyte patch.
it's always fun.
In addition, Aaron and myself were trying to download the patch at the same time. This did not work well, people. Erin has a direct connection. She's hardwired into the cable modem and router. I have wireless. Yeah, she was getting full speed. I was getting drabbles. I started a good 2 hours before her, and the only reason I finished was because we eventually convinced her to pause her download so I could actually finish mine. Seriously, game developers, put your patches in smaller chunks.
Really?
That's not possible unless you want people to be hacking that stuff ahead of time.
I just remember when I used to play the Old Republic, if I logged on and it happened to be a patch that day, even though I was plugged in through Ethernet, I would know that odds are I was not going to be able to get on that day.
Just the amount of people hammering the download server?
Or even just, I mean, yeah, like it would. I didn't know the specific things, but I just know I would just sit there every couple of hours. I would go back and check and be like, oh, yep, now it's at 10%. All right. 2 hours later, now it's at 15%. All right. Guess I'm going to have a snack.
See, that's one of the things I miss is working at the Do It Help Desk at the university. Because I had like multiple OC3 lines basically going right into the platform I worked at. I was physically part of the internet.
Are you saying you were interface?
The only thing holding me back was the 100 gigabit per second Ethernet cable.
Mm.
So yeah. At the time, I used to do stuff on IRC chat with anime fan subbers. They would immediately send me their file after finishing it, and I would host it to the people that would be the main distributors. And yeah, I'd be doing it at work on a spare computer.
And you would just watch the zeros and ones scroll by and be like blonde, brunette,
Oh
redhead.
no, it's not quite the Matrix, but no, it's just amazing how fast I could upload to people. These days, of course, when I'd go home, I'd have to go home to a 56K modem. That's like hitting a brick wall at 55 miles an hour, let me tell you. Would be playing MMOs, and I'd go home and try to log back in and finish something, and my guy was like, Nowadays, if my character goes, it's because the graphics the game needs are too big for my computer.
Means you need an Asmongold and then smack your computer, and then suddenly hear the fan rattle. Here's my computer supposed to be doing that?
Both Aaron and I bought Lenovo laptops around 2014, 2015. Both of our laptops are falling to pieces. Hers is worse than mine. But yeah, the things that connect the monitor to the main laptop are slowly breaking apart. So joy.
Yeah, it's safe to say you're never buying that model.
Oh no. I remember I had a Dell that ran for like 15 years because it was a freaking tank. It wasn't the most powerful thing in the world, but God, it just would not die. I think I gave it to Sarah and she eventually killed it, but
I'd go with an Asus these days. And that's basically the computer I've been running off of, and this thing is still running fine. It's had some upgrades, but it's running fine.
You run a desktop, Matt.
I know when I was looking for laptops, literally, like I was just looking on specs. I wasn't looking at the brand, but every time I found a laptop with good specs during my recent search, it ended up being an Asus.
See?
And then it would sell out by the time I went to buy it because I guess they only had limited amounts, and then I would find
Bingo.
another Asus. So
Yeah, they are not a bad company. Trust me. They even if it wasn't for the fact that it's a desktop and I've been swapping out parts to upgrade the computer. If I would have just been able to convince them to buy me a decent end computer and it was this company, I'd still do it, and I wouldn't need to upgrade it for a while.
I still miss Tiny God. Tiny God was the AKA Ranma 1 was the computer I hand built while I worked at the university. And I mean, it was literally, I would take part of each paycheck and buy part of the system. The only problem I had is I took a coworker's advice on what power center fan to buy. And that thing sounded like a jet engine.
yeah,
But God, for the time I had it, which was the beginning of Windows XP, oh God, that thing ran like a dream. It was a monster. It would eat anything and look around for more.
I actually just remembered recently, I actually don't think I've named this computer yet. Even my old thumbnail drive used to have a nickname for the computer. My thumb drive was TARDIS because it was like a 1 gigger and it was bigger on the inside than what it looked. I believe my external hard drive here is still called Black Mage. And my previous computer, I believe I called him Megazord.
Yeah, I always had a Ranma theme when I started naming it. Mind you, the project name for my old computer was Tiny God when I was putting it together. Once it was named, it was Ranma. My laptop was called Ryoga because Ryoga could go anywhere.
So what you're going to say, it always got lost and never knew where it was.
I was going to run a chat server at one point and call it Shampoo. And I was going to run a Linux server, call it Akane. because I suspected getting Ranma and Akane to talk to each other was going to be a love-hate relationship. So yeah, that was my plan for networking computers back in the day. But I had, I think, 2 or 3 Ranmas and at least 3 or 4 Ryogas. And then I think my portable drive was named Nabiki just because I needed a name. And yeah. And nowadays I just got this one laptop.
Yeah, I just got computer here. What is your name, computer? I still can't decide. And everybody goes quiet.
Yeah, I think we're done. So
Yep,
on
that
tonight's
was the
show,
end of that tangent.
we got news. We do not have birthdays, but we do have a lost story.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 pieces of Geek Talk. And then I will be doing the summary, followed by our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get into this. Like I said, there's no birthdays, but it is a sad day because AUP has to announce the death of one of Britain's greatest actresses. Diana Rigg, who played the evil Mrs. Gillyflower in the 2013 episode The Crimson Horror. Rigg is best known, however, as Emma Peel in the 1960s series The Avengers, and as James Bond's ill-fated wife on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and is Olenna Tyrell in HBO's Game of Thrones. Diana Rigg was born in 1938 in Doncaster, England. 2 months later, her father, a railway engineer, got a job in the Bikaner State Railway in India, where the family would spend the next 8 years. Diana learned Hindi as a second language while she was there. And then, after that, she was sent back to England to attend a boarding school near Pudsey, which she absolutely hated. Following that, she went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art to become an actress from 1955 to 57, followed by her first role in the play The Caucasian Chalk Circle, immediately in 57. She would then join the Royal Shakespeare Theatre for the next 8 years. During this time, she'd appear on TV, most notably in The Avengers. Following The Avengers and the Bond movie, she went back to the stage, getting nominated for her first of 4 Tony Awards in 1971 for her role as Heloise in the play Abelard and Heloise, in which she appeared nude opposite Keith Mitchell. She was nominated again for her role in The Misanthrope in 1975. By then, she was working for the National Theatre Company out of the Old Vic Theatre. She continued to work on guest roles in TV throughout the 70s and 80s, including the BBC adaptation of King Lear in 83, Bleak House in 85, and she played the evil queen in the television adaptation of Snow White in 1987.
Oh.
In 1989, she won a BAFTA for her role as Helena Vesey in Mother Love. Also in 1989, Rigg took over as the host of the PBS anthology series Mystery, replacing the ailing Vincent Price. She would continue to host Mystery until it was merged with Masterpiece Theatre in 2008. Rigg was made a Commander of the British Empire in 1988. This was raised to Dame Commander in 1994. In 2013, she joined the Game of Thrones cast for 18 episodes before her character was killed, and was nominated for a Primetime Emmy. Most recently, Riggs was in the latest season of All Creatures Great and Small, and was in a Broadway production of My Fair Lady, which earned her 4th and final Tony nomination. Diana Rigg died on the 10th of September after a short fight with cancer. She was 82.
Always the cancer.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was a BBC actress during the 70s and 80s, and they all wound up with cancer, I swear.
Yeah.
She lasted longer than most of them.
Yeah. I mean, you look at everything she did. She was huge. I mean, everybody, if you're in Britain, you remember the Avengers TV series, which, by the way, was actually ITV
Mm-hmm.
or its predecessor at the time.
Right.
And it still is always been on everybody's mind. And her James Bond role was opposite, not Connery.
Lazenby.
Was it Lazenby? Okay.
Yeah, that was his only movie. It was him, then Connery again, and then more.
Mm-hmm. And they would continue to reference that movie and the character's death at the end of it throughout the rest of James Bond's run. Pretty much up until like the last couple episodes, they still bring it up.
You mean
So,
movies?
what's that?
You mean movies?
Well, yeah, and through the rest of the run of the movies, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring up his dead wife, or have you ever lost somebody, and he would, look
Yeah.
uncomfortable for a moment. It's just something that they keep doing.
Yeah, it was. I forget exactly which one it is, but I know that there is a more movie where it's flat out him visiting her grave.
Yep.
Seemingly.
So yeah, that would basically affect the whole James Bond character following that movie, even though it was freaking Lazenby. Yeah. The more the James Bond nobody ever really wants to think about. Anyway, else in the news, Big Finish has released Eighth Doctor: The Time War Volume 4. That also has Terry Malloy as Davros in it.
Welcome back.
And then free this week is War Doctor: The Innocent Part 1, which you can get from the Big Finish website.
And I believe we reviewed that, yes?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
So that does it for the news. That'll take us to Geek Talk.
Mm-hmm.
First up on the docket is Star Wars.
Yep. It's kind of funny with this game. I mean, for one thing, the titling has always been weird to me because the way I've seen it written in like normal text is Star Wars Jedi : Fallen Order, even though it would make more sense to be Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But anyway,
There's not a multi-colon situation.
not that I could see, at least when it's written normally. Like when you look at the game cover and it's just like the Star Wars logo and then Jedi Fallen Order. But like when I've seen it written out in simply text, there's no separation between the words Star Wars and Jedi, so it's always really weird. But anyway, it's kind of if anything, I'm surprised A, that it took me this long to finish it, but also B, that almost in a way that it didn't take me longer. But I just I got in the mood to play it again. And decided, fuck it, I'm gonna finish this damn thing. I almost started over again, and then I was like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna go to YouTube, find a cutscene compilation, watch to where I'm up to, and then keep playing. Just to refresh my memory. And it's it's interesting. You play as like the 1 billionth Jedi to have escaped the Great Purge somehow. Which
Yeah.
that's its own thing.
Did Order 66 actually kill anybody? Because I swear to God, it's like every Jedi comes back at some point. And some point
That's
fix it.
actually no. As far as I'm aware, all the ones that died on screen died for realsies.
It was worse right before the retcon, because they had kept adding more and more that survived, including some that had been killed in deleted scenes. Like in The Force Unleashed, there is Shak Ti who's killed in a deleted scene.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it's one of those things where I remember when the game initially starts, I'm reminded of that, and I'm like, oh god, here we go, this again, this old chestnut. And I guess to be fair, they even bring up that Obi-Wan did tamper with the thing in the Jedi Temple to send a message out that's like, hey, actually, if you're still out there, stay away from the Jedi Temple because shit's kind of gone insane. So that might actually be, they, and they actually kind of play a bit of it at one point, so that might even be a vocal cameo by, if they were able to get him, by Ewan McGregor, if not just a sound alike. Or maybe whoever played him in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Well, knowing
I guess.
McGregor, he would probably do Obi-Wan for just a sandwich. Because he was super hyped to get that show running, and then apparently they took it all back down and are reworking it again. But anyway.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because you can tell this was definitely made during the sequel trilogy, because I think it kind of cribs some ideas here and there from it. For one thing, one of the main characters that is accompanying you, even though she doesn't ultimately do much for the most part, is a former Jedi that has cut herself off from the Force due to traumatic shit she went through. So it's like, okay, yep, I can see what they pulled that idea from. But ultimately, this is a case of, as much as the initial thing I'm laughing at because it's like, God, who hasn't survived the Jedi Purge? It's also like, I guess to be fair, this is set like 5 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith, and it's not stated outright, I don't think, in the original trilogy, but the implication is after the initial purge, Vader's basically going throughout the galaxy, hunting down the survivors and killing them off.
Yes, he supposedly is, and even in the New Hope, the one guy does mention that even his witchcraft beliefs haven't found all the hidden locations of the Jedi yet, which he then starts getting choked for.
But yeah, it's like, in a way, like, ultimately, I at least like that they explore, like, the main character you're playing as and the character that's acting as sort of a mentor figure to a point, are both dealing with trauma and PTSD in a way relating to this happening. Like, you kind of learn their backstories more as the game goes along. And so you have like a few different depictions of how people are dealing with this and the shit they've gone through. So that's generally nice. Ultimately, I'm also kind of glad that like there isn't like ultimately a ton of planets in this. There's only really like 5 that you like jump between for the most part. The only real no, I guess, let's see. I think they created like one original planet, which is like the main focus technically, that you have to come back to a few times, I think. There's Kashyyyk, Dathomir, and Ilum, or at least the other ones that I know of that are like, yes, these are actual planets that have been pre-established. Which I will say, as good as the graphics look, my god, do the Wookiees look like shit.
Oof.
Because it's really a matter of, hey, hairs always look kind of dodgy in video games, so let's have the Wookiees, who are pretty much nothing but hair, in this game. And it's just like, ugh. Like, they don't look absolutely horrible, but it's just like, and maybe like in the cutscenes they probably look a lot better, but in like the actual in-game stuff, they just look really weird. It's like
Oh
the
yeah, I just
texture's
searched
just
for
kinda
that.
off.
I just searched Wookiees Fallen Order, and I can see exactly what you're talking about. The weird thing is, I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy X for the PS2 had better looking. The Ronso, which are pretty much blue Wookiees, looked better than what I'm seeing here.
Oh god, it looks like a horrific plastic marionette. For all the other things that's going right in this game, how could they treat the Wookiees so bad?
Yeah.
See, games these days have too many of them polygons.
Ugh.
And of course, it's interesting. It's like you even compare that to like the Star Wars: The Old Republic Wookiees that you see, and those Wookiees look a hell of a lot better. So it's, I don't know. It's maybe just the art style choice didn't work, or just the textures are fucked or something. But yeah, it's just like they look really off.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's
the old Republic Wookiees. They look a little chunky, but at least they actually look like freaking Wookiees.
yeah. But yeah. Ultimately, the game is fairly interesting. It's definitely I honestly I can't remember initially why I dropped it, but I'm glad I did pick it back up and finish it. Um there's one thing that was spoiled for me that I was like I kind of wish I hadn't known that, but at the same time, yeah, of course they were going to do that. I mean, I won't say what it is, but you can guess. But yeah, it's I would definitely say that this is worth giving a shot. Whether no matter what you're playing it on, whether you can find it cheap. I mean, it's been out for almost a year, coming up on that, like probably a few months off a year or something. I think it came out like
Something along those lines, yeah.
yeah, it came out like November or December of last year, so it's getting close to a full year that it's been out. Yeah, it's definitely worth it if you can find it, like if even if the price is still a bit high, which I would hope that it had gone down a bit by now, but if the price is a bit high, like wait for a sale or something and get it. But yeah,
Hmm.
I'd say it's worth checking out.
All right. Is that everything?
Yep.
All right. So in the opening, I mentioned a game of mine just came out with a big expansion on Tuesday. That game is Conan Exiles, and the expansion is Isle of Sipta. This is technically early access for PC only, but we've been playing it for the last 24 hours, and I just wanted to give a first look opinion so far. The differences between that and the main game is in the main game, you're sent to the exiled lands to survive. Here, the plot is that the ship that's taking you to those lands runs into a huge storm, and you wash up on this island full of dark sorcery. Well, with this expansion, they've made several changes to the system. One of which is they changed the way healing works. And that makes healing kind of a pain at low levels. Matt, feel free to pop in here because you've been playing it too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a huge lack of health regeneration, which we used to get from just basically eating food, period. Now it's a
Mm-hmm.
very extremely slow tick, and at best, thankfully, they give us at least one of these bandage wraps that you can learn automatically from the beginning of the game. And while that does help lend you an ability to heal, you still need to find things first, like aloe, in order to actually make these things and then make them work. And then you need to
Yep.
be out of combat, otherwise you're just a sitting duck.
Yeah. In the exiled lands, you can pretty much find aloe pretty much virtually on the beach you start at.
Yeah, there's these
Um,
a few easy to reach spots right there on the main coast.
yeah, and in this one, you have to go inland a bit and find a river that has the, and there's a lot of it there, but you have to look for it. And until you find it, you're basically not healing at all,
So
which
you're
means
gonna
you're
die a
going to
lot.
die. Yeah, a lot.
But then again, for
One of
some of
our one
us,
of our
that
players
doesn't matter.
today died 20 times over the course of 2 hours of gaming.
Because he doesn't bother keeping healing items. That and
Um,
drops out of easy to climb down spaces like a lead balloon.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but okay. But yeah,
He does.
the in unlike the Exiled Lands, which is full of other humans, basically everything in this is wildlife. It's kind of like Fallout 76 in that way. In that fact that you virtually don't see any other humans anywhere
Well,
except for you and your friends.
we have one of our friends has found a city that's sociable, but I'm
It
not sure
is
where it is.
about
It's
as
way far
far,
away.
it's about as far away from the startup areas as possible. I know where it is. It's way the heck, yeah. So the rest of the time you see nothing except for every now and then there's these surges that'll drop thralls that you can capture in there, but trust me, they're not friendly. And will usually kick your ass because there's like a half dozen of them going at you at once. Yeah, that hurts. Unless you're in a team with good armor, you're going to basically just die by them.
You're gonna be giblets.
There's several new monsters, or at least reskinned monsters in this, and most of them look pretty good. The most common one you see are feral dogs, which look like what do you think they look like, Matt?
I
German
think that
shepherds?
kind of, sort of. It depends. There's some variation to them. Like there's one that could be more of a black labish, but yeah, I would think German shepherds would be a close approximation for most of them.
Yeah, and you can and they're all feral, so they'll all try to kill you.
And obviously, it's a reskin of the wolf, but it's a decent reskin that at least adds a little something to it.
Mm-hmm. And I was out running before the stream, and I found buffalo, which was definitely new to the game, and it looked like buffalo. I mean, I almost sat there and then started screaming "Tatanka" onto the Discord because holy cow. So they did a very good job with the new monster skins.
Well, speaking of which, were the fish people part of the original game yet, or is that completely new?
I'm not sure.
Because I don't recall the fish people, but they might be a reskin of a boss we only see once in the dark.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they might be a reskin of the creatures you fight in that underwater dungeon.
Yeah.
That they added.
There's these new, what they call vaults in this game.
Technically, Elder Vaults would be the correct term.
Okay, there's these Elder Vault things that are now scattered throughout the map. And when you get near them, almost all of them have these fish people who also have a venom spit.
No, only 2 of them have fish people. There are 14 vaults for 7 different elder races. So 2 of them are for fish people. 2 of them are for goblins, is apparently what they called them. I don't know what they look like because I haven't seen them.
Really?
Yes.
Goblins are Conan canon now. Okay.
That's what they call them. Again, I'm not sure what they look like. As far as we know, it could be something along the lines of the imps that we saw on the beach, you know?
Yeah, just maybe a more demonic version of them.
Yeah. There's also harpies.
Oh yeah, I heard about the harpies.
Yeah, there's 2 for that. And I'm not really sure about the others. I've been looking. I know there's one. I think there's one for the demon spiders. So that's going to be interesting. But we have not really gotten into the vault system yet.
No, we haven't.
Because apparently each one is a dungeon in itself, which unlocks recipes that you can use to do other stuff with these things called ley shrines. But I don't know how those work yet. That's going to be something when I'm able to cover it in depth.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've basically had about 24 hours to play. Most of that is learning not to die.
With Aaron's server in particular, Aaron decided to buy a second server, and she's hosting an air quotes hardcore server.
Which is basically a no-frills server at this point, whereas our other server host, Sarah, likes to increase XP and resource gain. The other one, no.
Not only no resource or XP gain, but also you drop all of your items on death, so you have to find your body again.
Yep, which is something that was with early Conan, but they turned it off eventually because the servers kept crashing at the time, and they decided to make it an option after that. But yeah, it looks interesting. It's I don't think I've seen a location on that island which is not visually beautiful.
No, there's not been a really like meh area yet.
It's either visually beautiful or really, really creepy. From what I've heard, the city there's a undead city near where we've been starting that is really, really creepy. But it looks nice. The monsters look nice. My only issue is in some of the mechanics and some of the sound. Like I said, that healing needs to be worked with. Part of the way the system works is that there is a maelstrom over the center of the island. And occasionally when that maelstrom ends, it causes these things called surges to appear. And when they do, they sound like a crack of lightning, which sounds like it's right next to you no matter where you are on the island. So you can be on the west side of the island, the surge appears on the east side, and it just sounds like it exploded right outside your door. So I think they need to learn to tone down the sound on that. And they need to adjust the healing a little more, I think.
Yeah, I don't know why Funcom is so scared of players healing themselves in the middle of game.
PvP. It's all about PvP.
Well, that's not going to get them anywhere other than more annoyed players.
But this has definitely breathed new life in the game because it's more interesting to go out and explore new areas, fight new monsters. It basically makes you look forward to it instead of, I start a character, oh, I know exactly where to go, I know what to do, I know what level I need to fight monsters, yada, yada, yada. I'm actually here where I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. I want to do these vaults, but I'm not sure which ones are safe, relatively speaking.
I'm also trying to think of her name, and it's not coming to me right now. They also got a new host main character from the Conan series.
Yeah, whereas the Exiled Lands has Conan, this one has Valeria, who is
Valeria.
basically the head of the one island that you get to talk to people on. So that's interesting. It looks really interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing it further.
Nope. I've got no major complaints other than, some of the stuff we've already mentioned. The healing really needs some tweaks.
All right. So that is our Geek Talk. That'll move us into the episode summary, which is me.
Alrighty.
Oh boy.
Stopwatch is up, so whenever you're ready.
Getting a drink to wet my throat.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All
Give me a
right.
countdown.
Yep. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
So we start off in a country house and what looks like Tudor era England. A young lady looks out the window and sees a falling star and a huge flash of light. She informs, I believe, her father or her uncle or somebody, her guardian, who poo-poos it and distrusts the idea, which is wise because pretty soon they're under siege by an unknown bad guy who's firing energy weapons. And the last we see of them is a desperate standoff in the house and basically their dining room that we're pretty sure doesn't end well. We cut to the TARDIS, and once again, the Doctor is attempting to get to Heathrow Airport in order to drop Tegan off, and once again, he fails. When they're out looking in the middle of the forest, they're pretty sure they're not in Heathrow, and they've gotten the time wrong. Tegan throws a little hissy fit and runs outside. The Doctor goes out to apologize, and they soon smell sulfur on the wind. They go to investigate and discover the fact that somebody's burning sulfur, basically burning gunpowder. And these people see them and immediately go to attack them. They basically try to retreat, and eventually run into a person who offers to share his camp with them. What is his name? Do we remember his name?
Actually, I have it right here. It is Richard Mace.
Richard Mace, who is a
I did not know
highwayman.
that.
I remember he introduced himself, yeah.
Yes, I remember he introduced himself. I had to look him up.
He introduces himself. He is a highwayman, former actor who's been forced to become a highwayman because of the closing of the theaters due to a plague that is currently in the area, which is why they were attacked and why they were burning sulfur. He is currently hiding out in the barn of a nobleman. And while they're in there, they stumble across a couple of pieces of alien tech. This gets the doctor to be a little concerned, and they go to the owner of the house, or the manor of the owner of the house, which just happens to be the house that we saw in the beginning of the episode. The doctor eventually finds a hidden wall, a hidden part of the house behind basically a holographic wall. And there they run into the thing that basically attacked the house earlier, which turns out to be a robot, henceforth called the Glambot. The Glambot knocks out Adric and Tegan, but the doctor and Nyssa escape. Later on, Adric and Nyssa are interrogated and then locked in a cell. Meanwhile, the doctor, Mace, and Nyssa run out and decide to talk to the miller, I think. Well, the doctor sends Nyssa back to go start building something to fight the robot. They go off to talk to the miller, who they saw leaving the manor earlier. That is a mistake because the miller is under the control of the whoever is controlling the robot, and on their way, they're once again confronted by, well, a whole bunch of people, but eventually the plague, the villagers that are afraid of the plague, and their village headman, who is also under the control of that person, who is, I believe, identified as a Terralept by the doctor, which, as we've seen him now, looks like a giant lizard man with half of his face horribly mangled. Eventually, the doctor and Mace manage to free one of the people, the poacher, and the village headman from their mental control by undoing the bracelets they have on. Adric manages to escape the house, but before Tegan can, she is again captured, and they put a mental control bracelet on her and basically have her do these odd jobs of moving these vials from one area to another. It turns out these vials are full of this specialized plague, which he is spreading into London. The doctor winds up confronting him, and unfortunately, he gets away with all of the vials of plague, and he is locked in a room with Tegan and Mace, both of which are now under mind control. He frees them before they can free a whole bunch of plague rats. And by that point, Nyssa has built this thing to destroy the robot. Adric has gone in, got sulky, went to go look for the doctor, immediately gets captured, escapes when the robot runs into them, and runs back to the TARDIS. Nyssa comes out, and the robot then bursts his way into the TARDIS. Nyssa activates this device, destroying the robot, and they somehow manage to pilot the TARDIS with some difficulty into the house to pick up the doctor, Mace, and Tegan. They immediately home in on their base in London, go in, destroy the Pteroleptal and his two friends, and set the entire place on fire. which starts the Great Fire of London. Mace decides to stay behind to fight the fire, and the Doctor and them move on before anybody asks any questions. End.
On the dot, 6 minutes, 36 seconds.
All right.
Not easy to summarize a Fifth Doctor episode, is it?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this one.
Seems to be a lot going on in all of them, even though they're only 4 episodes long.
I think the difficulty of the summary is directly proportional to how many companions there are.
That's possibly part of it.
And this is one of the biggest TARDIS crews that we've ever had.
This is one of the big. Well, not it's on the same level as the original, but they have more tendency to go off and do different things.
Whereas they barely have ever separated in more than groups of 2.
Yeah, it would usually be the Doctor and somebody and 2 of the companions.
Or all the companions and then the Doctor by himself.
Or if they were separated, it was briefly. Whereas this one, I was surprised that nobody got left behind with how much they wound up on their own for extended periods of time, lost in the woods.
Yeah, I think the longest they were separated in the first Doctor era was when Hartnell went on vacation for a week.
Anyway,
yeah.
So let's talk about what we liked about the serial. Thomas, you are first.
Let's see. You know what? As kind of cheap looking as it is, I feel like I'm actually gonna go with the pteroleptal costume, because like it just kind of grew on me. Like the more I'm watching it, it's like, you know what? For 80s Doctor Who on the shoestring budget they had, that's not bad. That could have been like 10 million times worse, especially when we get to what they do with the bloody Silurians next time they show up.
The Sea Devils, actually.
And they made 3 pteroleptal costumes.
Yeah. And they didn't all damage them the same way too, which I enjoyed. One of them had half his face gone. One of them was damaged on his shoulders and back, and I didn't really see the third one.
Yeah, and generally they also seemed, aside from also just being different colors as well, which was something they didn't really have to do. They could have just made them all green. Was like they all seem to also be varying sizes slightly. Like they didn't all seem, maybe it's just the way the actors were carrying themselves, but they all didn't seem like they were exactly the same.
That might be due to difference in the actor sizes.
True.
Yeah,
because I guess the other 2 didn't really talk.
Sue Doctor thing, yeah. I will say that, yeah, some of the bits of it did seem a little bit on the chintzy side, but I will say of that costume, I think the headpieces were the most interesting, especially for the main one, since the mouth would actually properly move with him.
All right. Bill, how about you? What was your favorite thing about the serial overall?
So I made fun of him in the opening, but I actually think I'm going to go with Mace. I think in this story, he's more fun to be around than any of the main cast, and he kind of adds some dynamicism when he's in the scene.
He's definitely a character that, like at first I thought was going to grate on me, but thankfully didn't.
At first, I wasn't sure if he was a villain or not, actually. I'm glad that he turned to be a okay guy, all considering.
Considering we first see him when he's sitting in a tree aiming a gun at the TARDIS crew, and then he hops down and kills a couple people.
Well, he hopped down, he shot at people, and then he hopped down, but he didn't murder anybody.
Yeah, he just scared him off.
What I got, the impression I got was he shot them and he didn't know or care whether they survived or not.
No, you see everyone that's chasing them, and you see that half that group run back into the woods, and the other half just stuck behind a tree.
Because I thought he said something along the lines of, "I don't think they can still walk, but if they can, come hide with me."
No, he said.
No, he said, "I don't think they'll bother us anymore, but for now, you should come with me."
Okay, maybe that's how I interpreted what he said then.
Yeah, he just scared them off.
Yeah, he just spooked them. He never murdered anyone until the last episode, and that was because they were monsters attacking him.
Mm-hmm.
He shot one of the aliens with a rifle.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
pteroleptals pretty much right in the chest.
Yep.
I mean, it's part of his character that's pretty clear. He wouldn't really have much problem with killing someone
He wouldn't have a
if
problem with
it's
killing
live
someone, but
thing.
the fact of the matter that he holds back until that point kind of shows that he's not exactly in the wrong or that bad of a guy to begin with. Literally, he's doing this
Actually,
because he has to survive.
I would argue Thomas's point. He actually seems to be not really capable of killing other people. The pteroleptals don't count because they're monsters.
Technically, they don't
But-
count because they're monsters, and the only other time he opens up his pistols was on the robot because it keeps coming after him as a grim freaking reaper.
And he's an entertainer by trade, so I can
Yeah.
see how he'd be a lot more comfortable attacking, something that doesn't seem to be human than an actual
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, and he's good at acting like he doesn't care when he's facing other people, but
Yeah.
he's acting.
Yeah, he's very good at
But
pretending to be a badass, and all he wants is the horse to get out of here.
Yeah, he actually kind of shows up later, and it does kind of become a thing where he does kind of prove to be kind of a craven coward most of the time.
You see why I call him a poor man's Jago? Although Jago, I don't think got that much characterization until Big Finish got a hold of him.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
Jago was
He
as
wasn't
fleshed
quite-
out as this
he
guy.
wasn't
This guy had a lot more
actually
going
as fleshed
on.
out in the 80s, but as I've become a fan of the Jago and Lightfoot audios, I couldn't help but see the resemblance.
Yeah, there's a little bit there, but I think this guy's got a lot more going on for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he would have made an interesting companion if they'd kept,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
instead they left. They're like, oh no, we've got too many already.
Yeah.
If we
But if
take
they-
him, can we
if
kick
they-
off Patrick right away?
If they had kept him and just did the goodbye to Adric the next episode, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Well, again,
A pre-industrial companion. What is this? The Second Doctor era?
Well, yeah, it
Um,
works so well there.
Yeah, why
True.
not?
it's of course the funny thing is that this, along with Kinder before it, I'm pretty sure both of these were stories that Nissa was not even supposed to be in because she was never really supposed to become like a full-fledged companion. Because I think the idea is she was supposed to be written out in Castrovalva or something.
Which might
And then-
explain why she was written like wood in this one.
Mm.
Well, being written by Wood is still an improvement over her last one.
Like, yeah, in Kinder she's like not even really there at all. And the other one, yeah, it's like they're trying to get a hang on her because they hadn't really expected to have her around.
Yeah, she was really only supposed to be there to react to the master.
While it's
in
on
the
topic,
novel.
I thought it was a little weird how this one kind of started with them recapping Kinda for Nissa. I don't know if any other Doctor Who story has really
Done
done
a
that.
done a recap like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty rare. Like normally, like I feel like it is probably pretty rare that they do that long of a reference, because I know like we did, like when we were doing the Pertwee stuff, there was at least an offhand mention of a previous story, but
Mm-hmm.
and there has been like like the Mind of Evil technically references Inferno because the Doctor's greatest fear is fire, and it's related to
And Joe's
Inferno.
greatest fear becomes the Drashigs from Carnival.
Hmm.
You don't see it in that one, but you see that later on. I forget where they have her face those in a some kind of mental flashback.
Hmm. Yeah, it is rare that it would feel like a direct continuation, I guess.
And it was a little more common to have back references back in the first and second Doctor era where they were going full on serial style. But once they switched to episodic, it dried up quite a lot. You know, people would start out wearing the same clothes that they wore in the previous episode as a reference to the fact that they just came out of China or the Middle East.
Right.
But still, Matt, your favorite thing about the serial overall?
My favorite thing. Well, I think Bill technically took one of mine. Trying to think. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of Glambot and his full glam glory, but I like the idea of him running around dressed up like Death and spooking the natives. That was actually something really clever.
Yeah, I really wished it could have been a little more elaborate than a 5 and dime mask.
True. It would be nice if it was a little more safely put on and maybe a little more spectacular
A
mask.
Halloween mask
Yeah,
of Woolworths.
When I was making the title card, I was looking at some of these screenshots. I was like, so did he go to Spirit Halloween store and get a mask?
Pretty sure it was Woolworths just during the... When did this air?
This would have
15 to
been
20.
the early
21, I think.
80s. Early 80s,
I was
yeah.
actually, I knew that. I was actually trying to figure out
Oh, when it took place?
when it was filmed and when it was aired. To see if when they filmed it, maybe it was Halloween, so they could just go to the store and pick up a Halloween mask.
I wouldn't be able to tell you
It
where
was
when it was filmed.
February of '82.
February was when it was aired, but that doesn't say when it was filmed.
True.
Yeah, aired in February.
I can't tell, but yeah, it might have been October, in which case, yeah, they just went to the store, picked up a
Maybe, yeah.
Halloween mask, and threw it on the robot mask.
Hmm.
It does kind of feel like it's really cheap.
Oh, interesting thought. We just mentioned the whole Kinda thing. This was filmed before Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they-
This was the one we covered, as I brought up in the text chat. The one we covered last week, Fort of Doomsday, was the first one the first Peter Davison story they filmed. This was the second.
Yeah, I thought we had mentioned that last week as well, but maybe not.
We didn't mention the Visitation was his second, but I brought it up that Fort of Doomsday was apparently the first he shot.
Yes.
And then and then after this, I think they finally did Castrovalva, and then and then went from there.
Yep.
Because apparently, I think even Peter Davison's I guess he wanted me to just throw me in the deep end to see how I'd go, and then go back to let me get a feel for the character first, and then do his first story.
Yeah, I think that there's a common tactic that they either don't have the first episode be the first one filmed, or if they do, it's because they have recurring companions that are carrying the performance. Although in this case, they had both returning companions and filmed out of order.
Okay. Going back to your thing about the pterodactyl costume, you realize that face mask was done via animatronics,
Oh,
and that's the first time they've used animatronics in Doctor Who.
interesting. So there was actually somebody offset actually controlling that head?
Probably, yeah.
In a way, that makes sense because even the I don't know, sort of where ears would be. I don't know if they actually are ears or whatever, but they kind of moved in and out. So
Oh yeah, he did. The one leader guy did seem to have a pulsing thing where his wound was.
Okay. Now, as for me, for what my favorite thing was, I'm pretty much the fact that everybody seemed to be doing something. Even if it's trying to escape from getting captured, there's still actually, you've got Tegan, actually going, hey, look, what's that? I think I can use this to get out.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to dodge the robot.
The way you said everybody doing something, the first image that popped into my head was a Scooby-Doo hallway sequence.
But, you have Nyssa off building something. You've got the doctor investigating. You've got the one that does the least is Adric, and he calls himself out on it later on.
Yeah.
And then it's later his bit to lure the robot to the TARDIS, although not really his plan, but that's how it winds up working for
Yeah.
it to be destroyed.
Yeah, like it is funny because they so easily could have just gone, oh yep, Adric and Tegan are captured. Let's just forget about them for a while.
And they don't. And then they
Mm.
switch off so that it's Adric and Nyssa. So
Mm.
it's not like they break up into a group and keep the same groups throughout the entire 4-part serial either,
Mm.
which is enjoyable.
Yeah. Especially considering this is, as was brought up before, this was literally after Kinder where Nyssa was written out.
Where she was written
basically.
out, where they basically just left Adric with the bad guys,
Mm.
and they left Tegan alone in the forest to deal with the Mara.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody seemed to be contributing some way or another, whether they actually were trying to or not.
Mm.
So let's talk about what we disliked about the serial, Thomas.
You know, for everything that I think was really nice about like the sets and all this and whatever, one thing, and I'm saying it here because it's not really a scene, even though like it only really shows up the once. When they go into the alien, like the pteroleptal ship, and you look out the door, that is the worst fucking matte painting. What the fuck? And I
Yeah,
swear to God, when the camera pans, you can see the edge of the set.
yeah,
Like you can see out the
that's
door
listed
through
as a production error.
Yeah. It's like,
They
oh my
were
God.
supposed to CG in the outside forest, and somebody forgot to do that.
Wah, wah.
Now I'm just imagining a big poster saying "Insert CG here," and then they just forget.
Oh God, yeah, that was so funny. I laughed so hard at that. That was just like, wow, really? I mean, maybe in like the black and white era, you could have maybe got away with it.
Oh no, the
but
black
Oh,
and
they
white era,
absolutely got away with it all the time.
the black and
Oh, yeah,
white era,
sure.
they were actually anal retentive about it. Every
Mm.
time they walked into the TARDIS door, you could see the outside world behind the door because it was a set.
Mm.
So they'd show half the set, and then they'd have the inside of the TARDIS showing the other half of the set, so that you would see the outside world.
But I'm pretty sure a ton of the landscapes were just matte paintings, and you really couldn't see a difference.
But it
Mm.
was enough to know that it was there.
Yeah.
Um,
Or like generally, sometimes it wouldn't show up as much that it was a matte painting, just because the black and white helped hide it
yeah,
a bit. Whereas in
unfortunately-
color, it's like, ugh.
exactly. Yeah, Star Trek would occasionally have that problem where they'd be, on a foreground set with a matte painting in the background, and you go, "Oh, that's a matte painting. Ah,
Mm.
that's another one." But yeah, so they tried to do a filming through CGI, and they either forgot to do it or ran out of money to do it.
Just
And-
flash this
could
thing in the
very
back.
likely be both.
The director, might have just gone and, which was Peter Moffat, by the way, might have just gone, they won't notice. We'll just continue on. And that's how you get a production error.
They spent all their budget on the Mara.
Possibly.
Which-
All right.
I will say for a second that is actually kind of hilarious. That isn't Peter Davison's actual name, Peter Moffat.
His daughter's is. I'm not sure if his is.
Mm.
It might be.
No, I know his last name is Moffat. Is his first name actually Peter? Yes, his name is Peter Malcolm Gordon Moffat.
Oh,
but
but it's with an E, not an A.
yeah, it's with an
So
E,
you
not an A.
So you had Peter Moffat directing Peter Moffat.
Yeah, well, there's a reason he changed his screen name to Peter Davison, is because there was way too many Peter Moffats in the BBC registry.
Yeah, and apparently there can only be one actor of any particular name in the guild.
Yeah, which is why
Mm.
David Tennant is David Tennant.
Yep.
Hmm.
It happens more than you'd know, and eventually they just come to identify with their screen name.
Hmm.
Did you know that David Bowie's real name is David Jones?
Yeah, and you don't want to get mixed up with Davy Jones.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It could have also been a bit throwing off if he did go by Peter Moffat anyway, because this same director also did stuff for All Creatures Great and Small, which he was in.
There you go. Right there. There it is.
Nice.
Yeah, they might have had a good relationship that might have started with, hey, we have the same name.
I can just imagine someone on set yelling, Peter Moffat, and they both look up like, yes. So now it's what I disliked, right?
Yes.
So in this episode, this is one of several stories, but it's pretty prominent in this one, where the doctor is in full-on pissed off mom during the halfway through a road trip mode. And I get it, I really do, but at the same time, it doesn't make it fun to watch. And I'm not sure he ever like backs out of that mode. He's just like, we need to get Tegan off of this fucking TARDIS and maybe Adric too, which of course is exactly what happens. But
Not necessarily in the way he wants to, though.
Right. Like some of the humor is there, but the snippiness just, it doesn't make it fun to watch. Like it's at that certain level where it's more like tense than entertaining.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Nyssa, because she's the quiet one. She's the wallflower of this
Right,
group.
right.
You've got Adric, who is it's not my fault. You've got the doctor, who's tearing his hair out. You've got Tegan, who's the overbearing loudmouth, get me the fuck home.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got poor Nyssa, who's basically standing in a corner with her fingers in her ears, trying not to get a headache from all of this.
Yeah. Like there's even like the bit where he's basically like, "Oh, so that machine you made worked. Oh, okay, cool." And like basically
and the fact is, he's acting like a 4-year-old too, because after Adric pilots the TARDIS there, they're like trying to get him to acknowledge Adric, and he's just like, nope.
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure out his motive during that scene other than just like something to take out on somebody.
I mean, it is kind of funny in a way that like when we were doing Fort of Doomsday, it was a matter of, oh my god, Tegan and Adric are unbearable, whereas in this one it's the doctor being a bit of a prick.
I mean, it's definitely a little bit of them, especially in the beginning. But yeah, he like, and that's why I compared it to like a mother on a road trip, because he's just like at the end of his ropes. He has a snippy remark about everything, and he's just like, I need some wine. I need to stop the car, and I need someone to get these kids out of the car.
I need a fucking vacation.
Right.
You know,
I need a vacation from my vacation in the case of many parents.
You know, if it's one thing you think the Fifth Doctor should have needed, it was a stress ball. Could you just see him pulling out a plastic ball and just squeezing it?
It's like, I traded in Romana for this.
I traded in my first chance of 500 years of actually getting laid for this. Yeah.
I traded in my first love interest in a century for this. Oh god, these kids are going to be the death of me.
Man, it's true. You get into a relationship, you wind up with bratty kids.
Mr. Ribber, when you're done with those grinding those balls, may I have them afterwards?
All right. Matt? Your least favorite thing.
Least favorite thing. Actually, here's a good one. I didn't really think about this, but then it just suddenly hit me. How does no one else, literally no one else, notice that all these major guys who are running the show around here suddenly have these fancy green bracelets that are glowing and making little beeping sounds?
Yeah.
With a big silvery thing sticking out of them.
Yeah, like they're very obvious on camera, but the doctor's like, "Huh, that's weird. It's like he didn't even notice us." And it's like, "Yeah, because he had a damn bracelet. Like, did you not know?"
Yeah, even the doctor doesn't notice them half the time. It's like, how'd you miss it?
Yeah.
And if he can eventually even see them, how is no one else who's literally hanging around these guys 24/7 not seeing them?
Hmm.
And how are they not noticing that they're occasionally acting really suspicious and weird?
Hmm. Like, I think in at least one guy's case, they were smart enough to like the sleeve of his like jacket or whatever the
Yeah, a
hell is
couple of
like
them
kind
had
of
sleeves that
covering
are
it.
just long enough to hide it from most shots, but a
Hmm.
mass majority of them, though, just no. Those
Yeah.
were all way out in the open and easy to find.
Hmm.
So there was no reason for people not to suddenly be super suspicious of the people with the weird bracelets.
Hmm.
Okay. So mine, I understand the reasoning behind him, but all the pteroleptals huddled around the solid and gas thing really looked like they were just imbibing in a giant space hookah.
I need a hit, man. I need a hit real bad. Come on.
Oh, that's so much better. I can tolerate this planet now.
Actually, it looks like one or two of them might have their eyes closed. Just like, yeah, man.
I am totally baked right now. It's what it looked like to me. I mean, the first time you see it, you're like, okay, that's a weird alien thing. I'm almost expecting something to pop out of it and attack the doctor, but
Seen
then
Alien lately?
then you get to any point where they're just leaning over it, going. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, they're just basically need to get space high there.
Need to wake and bake every morning. Give
All
me some
right,
of that good shit.
favorite scene, Thomas.
I was wondering if something else was gonna happen that would probably go over this, and there might have been, but I'm just gonna go with something from episode 1 where they're all sort of lost and trying to figure out where to go to get back to the TARDIS, and the Doctor just runs past, is like this way, and then stops, and everyone else keeps running, and then he's like second guessing himself about, wait, actually, was it this way? Was it this way? And then looks back to see the companion still running, and he's like, oh shit.
I'm pretty sure he ad-libbed that too.
I was waiting for
Wouldn't
him to run
surprise me.
off in a different direction and be like, actually, it's over here. Wait, where did all of my kids go?
He almost had a similar moment later on where they walk out the door and goes, that way is locked, and go the opposite way where someone previously went.
All right.
Bill.
All right, so I think I'm going with the scene where the doctor is like, well, this is evidence that they're aliens. This is evidence. And the guy's like, oh, please, it's stage trickery. I know all that. Listen here, Mr. Satan. Have you ever seen this? He's like, oh, shit, you're not lying.
And that's the only thing that I would have gone stage trickery too.
Something no one actually did with the actual Mr. Satan.
All right, Matt.
Actually, a really good scene is the android getting inside the TARDIS and Nissa flipping the switch.
Hmm.
It's an obvious sign that they're definitely trying to throw some budget at it when they literally take an entire suit like the android and literally blow that thing to Kingdom Come.
And later, the Doctor would recycle the parts into a new K9.
Affirmative. And this K9 with little shiny bits all over it wags its tail.
God, glam K9.
Well, he
All
would
right.
blend right in the 70s. You couldn't blame him for trying.
All right, so my favorite part, and it's only part of a scene, is when they're materializing the TARDIS in the thing. You really watch as the Doctor is cringing visually at all these failed landing attempts. I also love the fact that it is actually percussive maintenance that causes the TARDIS to work.
Yes, for a reason, whatever that thing is that's constantly causing the TARDIS issues, percussive maintenance was the key.
And you notice
what would the
when
Doctor do if he was here now? I believe he would get angry.
I wasn't telling you to choke. I'm not choking. He thinks for a moment. Right,
Oh, wait.
elbow.
Bam.
Ow.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
And then-
boom, there we
And
go.
then you watch as the Doctor comes into the TARDIS to take off at the end of it, and one of the first things he does is hit the console.
Yep.
Yep. Definitely a
Which
sign
was-
that something needs updating.
Actually, that would be an ongoing issue through the 8th Doctor.
Well, occasionally, yes, they would still do it, but they wouldn't do it nearly as much as he was doing at this point.
Although I think the 9th Doctor actually, had a rubber mallet. He would eventually, or it might have been the 10th Doctor. One of them had to actually hit the TARDIS console with a rubber mallet a few
Both
times.
of them had the rubber mallet. It was still the same, air quotes, desktop theme.
Yeah.
They were rubber mallet, but I think it was that particular version of the console. There's a lot of weird add-ons for that part.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing more so for New Who Doctors is also kicking it as well. Occasionally instead of punching it or something.
All right, least favorite scene, Thomas.
Let's see. God. That's so weird. It's really like I'm having a hard time thinking of one now. I feel like I might have had one before. Actually, you know what? Yeah, there we go. Remembered it. They come in the door at the end in the final episode to confront the pterodactyls, but they're only, they don't think to look to their left as they come in, so they completely miss the two that are standing right beside the door.
May I make an add-on to that?
Okay.
The Doctor talks about the flammability of soliton gas earlier in the serial. So when going to confront the pterodactyl base,
Torch.
he grabs a torch.
And lets the other guy bring a gun.
I'm like, seriously? You're just basically saying, I'm going to burn you all down. The only thing that would have been more funnier if the other guy had a pitchfork. All right, Bill, least favorite scene.
So I'm iffy about mentioning this one because it's at least partially explained by the fact that Nissa is intentionally setting a trap. But at the time watching it, and even still parts of it is still not covered in that, the scene where there's that kind of triple chase where Nissa goes into the TARDIS and then the pterodactyl or the android and then Adric. And there's a lot of slow action in there that I feel would have been such a better scene if it was just 150% speed. Because at the time I'm sitting there I think at one point the android just stops moving for someone to finish going inside the TARDIS or something. And I was like, that looks so ridiculous as it is. And I get they had to wait and let things happen, but it seemed a little weird. At least the part about Nissa being slow and why she didn't lock the door makes sense because she was setting a trap. But even still, like I'm pretty sure the android would not have just been like ignoring them and like not like shooting anybody or anything.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been sure why the android had to take the time to play Choke-a-Bitch on Adric.
Right.
Of course, it's also funny that yes, Adric, the boy genius, decides it's a good idea to kick an android.
Yeah, I really thought it was over the top to choke him. If the android had just taken a moment to backhand his ass,
Right, which
Isn't that ultimately what he does? He's like,
Yeah,
No,
he
bending
chokes
over
him
and he
out.
just
Which-
smacks him.
no,
Oh.
he does club him with his fist.
Yeah, he clubs him in the
Considering-
back of the head.
considering the fact that the pteroleptal backhands somebody with little T-Rex arms at one point that looks completely ridiculous, the android doing that instead would look so much more believable.
Hmm.
Especially since we literally
like-
see it punch through a door at one point.
Mhm.
Balsa wood.
Hmm. You think it would have ultimately just kind of shrugged Adric off and just kept going?
Well, I could have seen the need to backhand him just so that he's delayed until after the robot's destroyed for the plot wise. Otherwise, Adric would have been in right behind him
True.
and then would have passed out, ears bleeding from.
From the device, yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been a very violent way for Adric to suddenly have ended.
Doctor, I killed the robot, but Adric's head exploded.
He was right behind the robot.
Where is he? Well, he's on the console and on the wall and in the rundles.
Well, bits and pieces of them are all over in the hall.
Over here, and there, and there.
And up there.
Just watches a little piece of brain matter drops off the roof onto the frickin' time rotor. That would be a little visceral for 1980s Doctor Who, let me tell you.
And expensive.
Are you kidding? I'm pretty sure you can get that goop for about $250. The most
Depends upon which
expensive
parts
thing-
of it. The blood part is cheap and easy. The brain matter, if you actually try to make it look authentic, might be a little on the expensive side.
You can partially solidify Jello and make it look like brain matter.
Also,
I've
depends
seen
upon
it.
how much of Adric you're leaving in one chunk.
Anyway, who are we up to for least favorite scene? Was that
Is it up to me?
It was
think
just
so.
past me, so it should be Matt now.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it should be me. I guess I don't have a really major least favorite part, but I will say one of the ones that does strike me odd, speaking of unusual gore in Doctor Who, the way the big bad ends at the end of the episode. Holy smokes.
with that bubbling, yeah.
With his bubbling eyes and stuff, yeah, it's like you couldn't linger any harder on that, could you guys? Why don't you just literally watch as the flesh melts from his bones? Why don't you?
Oh, they're making new pteroleptals. Shouldn't have fed him after midnight.
Smell.
Yeah, I thought that was a little much too. That's literally, I swear to God, it's a Mary Whitehouse baiting scene.
Basically, yeah. That must have had the sensors up screeching all night.
It screams Eric Sayward, though. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
All right, so my least favorite scene. I think it's actually the introduction scene with the family who's never seen again, because it's completely unnecessary for the storyline.
Yeah.
They
At least
spend a
for
good,
as long as it goes. Yeah.
they spend a good 5-10 minutes on them.
Yeah, they could chop that first part of the introduction in half, just going with a couple of special effects of the lights in the sky, a quick bit from the daughter about the lights, and then cut to the son in the cellar doing whatever he was with the guns, and then having the gun shoot off, and then having the father show up. You could have cut a lot of time right there.
Yeah, or even just cutting straight to the like, oh shit, where like the house is being attacked
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing,
Well,
and
that's
just
literally
like,
just
ooh,
seconds
what's
before it's
attacking?
attacking. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you
And
mean
you
just
know-
get rid of
because you
the
still
introduction
have
altogether? Okay.
yeah, because like you still have Richard Mace bringing up the there was lights in the sky and all that, so
Yeah.
you still get that info across without the woman in the house bringing it up. So
Yeah, and the fact is that the pyrotechnics effect that they did on it really didn't do it justice.
Nope.
Mm.
It was really a failed special effect, so it literally contributed nothing
Yeah,
to the
It's-
episode.
it's kind of funny because it's one of those things like with the Nissa bit that's like I could see New Who handling this better, but only because also New Who has shorter stories by virtue of being one episode stories mostly. That you probably would have got that thing done in like 2 minutes, and the Nissa thing would have been done a lot quicker by virtue of making it feel more actiony.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, final thoughts, Thomas?
Yeah, this is interesting. Like, I feel like there was certain things that don't work, like a scene that I almost think that I was gonna bring up as my least favorite initially was the oh no, they've been locked in a room shouting for the doctor and end of the episode. Like, wow, that's a shitty cliffhanger. But apart from that, like I feel like I was not so much bored by it on the first go around, but the first go around it's like it starts off a bit slow but kind of gets better as it goes along. I think I enjoyed this a lot more on the rewatch. There's still issues with it and like the play like the villages that are going nuts about like oh these people are infected with plague and all that. That ultimately doesn't really go anywhere. They're just kind of there to be an obstacle for like 2 or 3 times. Um so it's kind of annoying though because it's like I don't even know if you could necessarily get rid of them, at least not all of them. Actually, you know what? Like the greater villages at large, you could probably get rid of. Like just have like a handful, that are under the Pteroleptal's control, and it probably still would have worked. Um, but yeah, like honestly, I would say this is worth giving a watch. Like initially, like I think on my first watch, I would have probably just said it's only really worth watching um for the fact that the uh sonic screwdriver gets destroyed and we don't see it again until I'm pretty sure New Who, if not the TV movie. I forget if he actually has one in that. Yeah, I'd definitely say it's worth watching. Like it could have been quite a lot better, but for what it is, it was definitely not bad.
All right.
In the TV movie, he has the Sonic, but I think he holds it backward because he had never used it before.
Yeah, that was McCoy. Yep. Bill?
All right, so this episode is not a really standout episode for me. This is during the time when the TARDIS crew, even though they're doing a lot on the plot, are not really enjoyable to watch. We talked about that a little bit with Ford of Doomsday. We talked about it a little bit during today's, and just in general, like there's no time when you're like, oh, even when they're filling their roles well. I'm sure Janet Fielding was acting her heart out, but there wasn't really a lot of fun moments where you're like, yeah, I'm really glad to be watching this TARDIS with this crew during this time period when all four of them are together. That coupled with I don't know. There wasn't much really to fill that role. Mace did it a little bit. Otherwise, yeah, this is probably one of the most negative we've seen the Doctor, just as his general demeanor throughout the episode. The pteroleptals are okay, but they're really nothing special. So in the end, it just comes to really to a nothing special episode. That's real claim to fame is that it kind of I don't know if cripples the Doctor is the right word, but it takes away a crutch from the Doctor, and that's really what it's known for.
All right. Matt?
I feel the plot is. I feel the episode in its entirety, the story is a little bit possibly forgettable, but I still think there's enough decent stuff here that people who are interested should definitely give it a try. I won't say that any of the major plot points were a major hindrance, and I would even still leave the villagers as a massive group threat alone because it still gives them a sense of urgency to not be hanging around, at least outside, too much. Um, some of the effects are a little bit on the chintzy side because, well, it's 1980s and they hadn't had a budget improvement since the early 70s, as far as I'm aware. Um, and that coupled with the um, how much they were trying to get done with the same budget, you see a little bit errors, but they're not like horrific things that'll just take you completely out of it all the time. It's just you gotta be aware of that they run under constraints. Um, the acting for the most part was really good, especially the guest character in Richard Mace was really good. He's a quick one to latch onto, and he has a lot of fun dialogue. And there are a few moments where Davidson does show through to be a decent Doctor because he has a few Doctor moments, especially in the first episode. But yeah, there are definitely moments where he does seem to be getting rather annoyed, and I don't think it's to be blamed on him. I think it's to be blamed on possibly the writing. But other than that, it's an interesting romp and not by any means a terrible episode.
All right. So I do feel this episode's mediocre. It's the first episode is really slow going. It just feels like it drags and it has kind of a lame cliffhanger. The acting is decent. The special effects are blah. I don't like the pteroleptal costume, regardless of what Thomas says, because it really looks like it doesn't fit the actor well. You can really tell it's a fake mask, and it just bothers me. The story really seems to spin around without really going anywhere until it rushes to finish in the last act. So it just feels like it was not really well edited, well acted, but post didn't really come through with it. All in all, par bordering on subpar for me. All right, let's rate it. Thomas, you're first.
I will say, for as positive as I was, taking into account other things I've given certain things, I would say the highest I can probably go with this is 3.5.
All right, Bill.
I'm going to say 3.0.
Matt.
I kind of had a feeling I was going to be a high B. Yeah, I can't give it lower than a 4.
And I will help negate Matt's enthusiasm by giving it a 2.5.
It's
Yikes.
no time lash.
And that will average this out to a 3.3, which in our rankings is going to put it pretty darn low. It is going to put it at number 273 out of 358. it is on par with Fear Her, Ascension of the Cybermen / the Timeless Children. Ooh. Ow. The Massacre, Modern Undead, Evil of the Daleks, In the Forest of the Night, Planet of the Daleks, The Space Pirates, Earth, and it's not as good or it's better than The Highlanders, mostly because of missing footage.
Mm-hmm.
The Stones of Blood, Time Lash. It got better than Time Lash. Planet of the Giants, The Underwater Menace, The Pandorica Opens, The Big Bang, Robot, and Arc of Infinity, and it is not as good as Earthshock, The Abominable Snowmen, The Crusade, Silver Nemesis, The Curse of Peladon, The Androids of Terra, The Mythmakers, The Five Doctors, and The Android Invasion. So yeah.
I think at least 2 stories in each of those 3 categories had telesnap penalties.
Yep. Yeah, it's down there in the telesnaps. So yeah, 273 of 358. That's all we have to say about the Visitation.
All right, so let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with Matt at the 4.0? Do you agree with Randy at a 2.5? Or are you somewhere in the middle? Don't forget
Or
to...
are you way off on the ends?
Right?
Do you think it's the greatest episode ever or the worst things Doctor Who ever produced?
Yeah. Don't forget to like or dislike the video if you feel those things. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow on Twitch to keep getting our new podcasts.
All right, so next week, we conclude the first season of the Fifth Doctor's run. It's back to the Edwardian times for some cricket and a mystery and the last pure historical Doctor Who ever made. It's Black Orchid, written by Terrence Dudley and starring Peter Davidson as the Doctor, Matthew Waterhouse as Adric, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, and Janet Fielding as Tegan Jovanka. See you next week.
We'll see if I still am okay with this episode.